Each week, I'm outlining 2 training sessions a week for coaches doing pre-season. And then we will continue this throughout the in-season. And I've been doing one pair of sessions for juniors each week and one pair of training sessions for seniors each week. I think I'm having senior moments today. What I'm going to do this week is explain in detail what I've done already in the first 4 weeks. So those of you who are just taking my content and going, right, he said 3v2 here, so I'm going to do a 3v2. All right, he said do rhythm runs here, wasn't it? If you're not going into the detail that I'm going to mention now, my suggestion to you is to repeat 2 of the first 8 sessions that I've provided so far and go into the detail that I'm going to outline today. Because what I'm going to do today is really explain to you what I would expect in a high quality session for all the activities I've given you so far. So as a coach, if all you're doing is consuming drills and consuming games, I actually believe you're thinking about it all wrong, because what you need to focus on, yes, you can get drills, you can get games. I'm not saying that, but what you need to focus on is the quality of your delivery, the quality of the skill learning that's taking place as you are doing a drill or doing a game or putting on a game, I should say. You need to design drills and games that are so simple, the players have to focus only on their skill, not doing the drill. So if it takes you longer than 90 seconds to explain a drill to them, I can almost guarantee that your drill is too complicated for them to learn skills efficiently. A lot of the training I do is 4 cones or 8 cones or 10 cones, depending on how many players I'm working with. The message I'm trying to get to you coaches is it's about what you deliver as a coach, the quality of your coaching, the observations you make, the corrections you make, and also the methods you use in order to get the absolute best out of the players in all those situations. So, for example, if you're not doing bilateral learning, which is the equal amount of activities on the left and right of the body for each player in absolute equal measure, then you're not doing things right. If you are not making provisions in your planning for players that will take the social loafing option, so social loafing is basically the easy option. So if you're playing a small-sided game, the player who just hangs out on the wing, they will get less repetitions of catch and pass. In fact, they will only receive a ball rather than pass a ball because they're on a wing. So you need to manage all these things. That's a very brief overview of the things that they will be doing. In a drill, if you have passing lines of 4, and somebody stands on the end of the drill, let's say on the left, all they do is catch a ball and then pass it back in the direction that it's just been passed to them from. I used to do that all the time as a player so that I didn't have to pass both sides of my body. And a lot of the way I acted as a player formed my philosophies as a coach because I knew I was taking a shortcut. So how do you fix that? Well, if you've got a training drill, which is lines of 4, many coaches say 4 lines. No, lines of 4. You're doing lines of 4. 4 lines is having 4 different lines, right? So lines of 4, you give them a number. Number 1 is on the left. Number 2 is second. Number 3, third, etc. And when they've done a repetition, number 2 changes into number 1. Number 1 changes into number 2. And number 4 changes to number 3. And number 3 changes to number 4. And you soon get rid of that problem. And then you also have to think about the level of conditioning that you want your players to do. So, for example, if we're doing that passing grid and we've got 20 players, 4 cones, 10 meters by 10 meters, and we're doing all those things I've just said about moving 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 2 to 12, at any one time, there's going to be 4 players active in that drill, and there's going to be 16 players stood still. So if it's a warm-up, it's not going to be great. It's going to take you a while to warm those players up correctly. If you want to condition them at the same time as they are doing drills, it will take you forever if you do it like that. In fact, you won't condition them. Imagine we've got 2 drills now, 20 players. All of a sudden, there's 8 players moving and 12 players stood still. If I do 3 grids, 12 players moving, 8 players stood still. If I did 5 grids, your 4 players will catch and pass moving forward. They'll turn around, catch and pass coming back. That will be physically a lot harder. And that's a very simple way of explaining how you can increase the intensity of some of your drills and some of your games just by looking at repetitions, avoiding cues. Another thing with your coaching is don't stand on top of your drill all the time. Stand back so you can get a bigger view, a better perspective. All the training that I've given to you in the first 4 weeks has been designed to cover core skills, unit skills, and team skills in offense and defense. So let's now think about the game. Tell me this if you need to coach much more than this. Core skills: grip, pass, catch, carry, tackle technique, some evasion. Tackle technique under pressure. Some players need to learn how to kick. Do you need to cover much more than that? For individual skills that individuals are responsible for. In unit skills, I define unit as anything between 1 and 5 people. So 2 and 5. So in that unit skill, and I can hear some of you thinking this, he didn't mention line running. I'm now going to mention it in unit because your line involves somebody else giving you the ball at the right time for it to be successful. So line running comes into unit, but also things like 3v2, your plays, so your blocks, your face balls, etc. They're unit things in attack. In defense, that can be your ruck control. So an individual tackles with other individuals, but then together they do some ruck control and get to marker and ABC, don't they? The right edge and the left edge of defense are a unit. Tell me if you need to coach much more than that. Or if they're the areas that you need to look at. If there's any more areas you need to look at. And I would say there isn't. And then in team, self-explanatory. Your team need to know what they need to do from their own end of the field, at the attacking end of the field, and somewhere in the middle. And they also need to know how to defend in those areas too when they've not got the ball. And if what you're doing as a coach takes you longer than 4 weeks, so 8 sessions, you're coaching them too much. If you can't fit everything you want to cover into 4 weeks, you're coaching far too much technically. Because you're not looking at the skills that they're executing. So I would argue that in those 4 weeks that I've given you, you've covered basically every area of the field. You now need to refine it over the next few weeks. And don't get me wrong, I'll still give you the plans and say, this is what I suggest you do this week, this is what I suggest you do next week. But it's about your delivery as a coach. It's about your correction. It's about your ability to consume something that you are watching and make changes. So many coaches will put on a small-sided game in training, or they'll put on 13 versus 13, and they only watch, they don't correct. Guys, if you want to watch a game, there's plenty on telly. Watch them. When you're on the coaching field, you're there to coach, right? And it's your ability to observe what's going on. And those areas I've just covered, that's the game. Yes, there's a few others like the scrums, set pieces. But how many times will you use those set pieces in a game? When I was a young player, I used to laugh at the amount of times that we'd practice tap penalties. As if we got them all the time. Something like 80% of possession starts with kick returns at the end of the opposition set. So why didn't we use loads more of them? Anyway, let's go through the activities. The warm-up. I've already mentioned what you do with passing grids. And I suggest, if you've got 20 players, I actually suggest two grids. But they'll move intensely. Okay? 2 minutes left to right, passing. 2 minutes right to left, passing. That's bilateral learning, for example. You can warm up with games. Just make sure they're playing the ball correctly, even adults. And if you want to get grip, pass, catch, carry right, make sure they're catching it properly. And if they catch it on the chest, turn it over. If they're not playing the football properly, turn it over. I've already made reference to grip, pass, catch, carry, which is one of the activities. So if I'm teaching players grip, pass, catch, carry, I want to see their target to the side. So by target, I mean their hands. And with kids, you can get them to clap the hands and keep the thumbs together. The thumbs need to be get together to catch a ball, okay? But you want the target to the side. You want them to turn their hands towards the person who's ready to pass them the ball. And when they catch that ball, they hopefully catch it with fingertips and have fingertip control rather than putting a hard palm against it. And they don't need to bring their hands into their body. They need to just bring it across the body. And what I always coach players to do is to tip the ball. So, for example, if it's a Stadium football, which 99.9% of rugby league footballs are, if the N is on top of the ball, at the top of the panel, and the S is at the bottom, turn it round so the S is on the top and the N is on the bottom. That will automatically bring your elbow up and flick the ball with your fingers and wrists from there. That's what I coach. And that's what I think you should coach, or very close to that anyway. Keep it really simple. The coaching terms I use are hands, grip, tip, flick. If you look at the coaching manuals, there are about 20 different points they use. And some of the coaching manuals I've read, and I put one of these in my book, Rugby League Coach, 13 Game-Changing Conversations, if I didn't tell you about that. One of the I actually said, if you were to read it exactly as it said, so if you were on the spectrum somewhere, some of the things you'd do would be unbelievable. You'd end up with your hands around your ankles or something. 3v2s. I always say that if there was only one drill I could ever do, it'd be a 3v2, because in that you have everything that you need. It's an attacking drill, right? Really. But it can be a defensive drill too. Because the two defenders can be used to defend against an overlap if they work together. But we'll talk about the attacking side of it first. If you don't get your grip, pass, catch, carry right, then your 3v2 is going to suffer. And in that 10-meter grid, so many coaches will start with some convoluted way of getting into the grid. We'll start really simply first when you're teaching it. Start it just in a grid. We'll start on the left for argument's sake. Get that person to pass the ball to the player in the middle straight away, and then readjust and get behind the pass rather than just passing and jogging through. And the person in the middle, hold the ball in front of them, hold it a little bit higher there in two hands so that you can look at the hips of the opposition defense. because Shakira said hips don't lie. But if you say that to kids now, what does Shakira say? They say, well, she's in grade 8 with me, because all the kids were named after Shakira. All the fans of Shakira 12 years ago. So hold the ball up, and you can actually look at the defensive players in the same eye line as you've got the ball. Keep your hips square as an attacker. Keep the two other attackers in a straight line, and you have a call, i.e., give me the ball, or I'm pretending I want the ball, but give it to the other person. They're the calls. And that's what you need to be teaching to make the right decision. Because those two defenders will either split and go to the two attackers outside me. If my hips are square, I can just go straight through. Or those two defenders, one might attack me and one attack the person on my left. So I'll pass right, and vice versa. They might go into a neutral area, which can be a bit problematic sometimes, actually. So what I always tell players to do is to go fast and just back their instincts. Okay? And then you've got the plays. Again, I teach them in a very basic box. And many coaches go straight to plays. But if your players don't know how to catch and pass a football, and if your players don't understand the basic concepts of line running, which they will have got from a 3v2, i.e., if I stay in a channel, I will engage a defender. So now with plays, you might have to change a channel. So, for example, with a block, if there's 3 of us in that channel, in that grid, number 1, who's on the left, is going to pass the ball. Number 3 is going to go straight and then cut across into number 2's line, sort of 45 degrees, and then straighten up again. Number 2 in the middle is going to delay their run straight, and then cut into number 3's line, timing it so that they get the ball on the outside shoulder of number 3 who's cut into their line. The golden rule about line running is you stay in your train track, and then if somebody comes into your train track, you go into theirs. And they're the things you should be looking at plays. I see a lot of coaches doing plays, and the players just drift. And then, of course, with your plays and everything else, your 3v2s, it's about the pressure you put it under. So your 3v2, if you want to lift the pressure after a while, make it collision. You can do conditioning with it, get your players to go up and down each repetition. You know, this is what you can do with all these activities. You can't tell me you can cover all this in 4 weeks and all your players will know it inside out. You're kidding yourself if you think that's the way. Your players need repetition at this. And if you get them in a good grip, pass, catch, carry place, and you get them to do good 3v2s, they will make the right decision more times than they don't, especially with plays as well. So many coaches go straight to plays. Let's look at the defensive side of the football now. Tackle technique. I want my players to tackle with their shoulder, not with the top of their chest, not with their sternum. I want them to tackle with the top of their shoulder. I want the shoulder going in between hip and elbow, which ultimately will be ball carrying arm. That's where I want the first collision. Okay? Again, you need to take appropriate safety measures in your training environment, and so you're responsible for that. Take every precaution. Have a look at the terms and conditions if you're watching this video. If you're listening to the podcast, have a look at those terms and conditions on YouTube. The tackle is absolutely essential to any ruck control you're going to have. And this is what many people don't understand. They look at ruck control as a concept all on its own, an individual activity. There's no ruck control without good contact. If you have a poor contact, you start to get driven back from a direct runner and you are gripping on for dear life. That, yes, you can still achieve ruck control from that scenario, but you are behind the 8 ball. You are not in control. The term ruck control is actually misleading because you're actually trying to control the ruck. You're not controlling it. So your tackle technique is really important. You need feet close to tackle well. 100% of tackles are only as good as where the feet are at the point of launch into the tackle. In my analysis video last week of Hull KR's defence, a player, number 8 for Hull KR, came out to really smash someone in the midfield. He jumped in like Superman from about 1.5 meters away, and he got stepped. So he missed. If he'd have jumped in like Superman 0.5 meter away, if his feet were in the right place, he would have made that tackle. And then that's the next point. So when you've got your tackle technique the way you want it, you've done it bilaterally, 3 tackles right shoulder, 3 tackles left shoulder all the time. When you've got it where you want it, that's all well and good against a stationary person. What about when the person is moving? How can you maintain your tackle technique when the opposite player is moving? So if you commit too early to the tackle and you plant your feet, the opposition attacker should step away from you and you'll tackle them with your arm rather than your shoulder. So how do you maintain that? So we've got plenty of work to do, haven't we? Okay. And then there's a ruck control, which I call effort 2. So I call tackle technique effort 1. I call ruck control effort 2. And I break it down into 3 avenues, and all these are on YouTube. The tackle that you dominate, the tackle that you don't dominate, and it's passive, how you recover that. But then the big one is the 50-50, i.e., it's up to us if we get control and how we work together. So you've got plenty to do on ruck control. No 2 rucks are the same. Loads of work. So if you're just looking for another activity, another that's unrelated, we're going to do some other drill that might help with a ruck. Nah, that's not how I coach. You need to go to another website or another podcast, because I'm about fixing things. I'm about coaching things, not putting activities on. I've mentioned rhythm runs in there, which is, you might know as defensive mapping. And I'll just say this. If you ask for a defensive line, don't stop until you get a defensive line. What you let go is what you allow. So if you want a line, only accept a line. And what rhythm runs are about, and why rhythm runs can often, in my training, be shorter than 10 meters, is about the actual rhythm. A lot of defense is about a rhythm, right? So let's say you don't absolutely kill the ruck in defense. You've got to get back efficiently, you've got to get back quickly, and then you've got to turn efficiently so you can get back up again and still be in a line. A lot of that is about rhythm. And as a team, if they're so used to doing these rhythms or these rhythm runs, the more you practice those, they will know when they're in rhythm, when they're not in rhythm, and the rhythm will be used to teach them whether they are winning the ruck or losing the ruck as a team. So again, tackle technique, core, ruck control, unit, rhythm runs, team. All the attacking things I've mentioned, core and unit. And then we practice them in 2 games, basically. The restricted pass game is designed to look at core skills and individual skills on both the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. The fine space game is designed to bring the whole group in. So yes, it's still core and unit, but it's about looking up and finding space. So it's different skills again. Restricted pass game, what you do when the game's tight in the middle of the field. Fine space game, look up and find some space. So that's why those games are in all the time. So we practice the skills, we learn the skills, and then we apply them in games. Now, I think the first 4 weeks that I've given you, if you've not done them in absolute detail, i.e. find space game, you know what finding space is? It's green grass and fresh air. And if you see that, you give them 3 more tackles if you've studied the video that I'll put in the links. But if you give them 3 more tackles when they've just made a little bit of a indent in the defensive line, then you're not teaching them anything. If you're playing the restricted pass game and you want good grip pass catch, carrying good lines of run, if they do poor lines of run and catch it on their stomach, and you don't do a turnover, they're going to keep doing that. That's what these sessions are all about. And if you've missed that in the last 4 weeks, because to be fair, I didn't necessarily explain that, did I? I just gave you activities. Well, now I'm explaining it, and you need to go back and look at some of those things. And some of you will need to do the whole 4 weeks again and go into real detail. Because the key thing about coaching, guys, is recognizing what's going on and correcting it. Coaching is correction. My name's Lee Addison, like I've already said. I consult for clubs, I mentor coaches, I've got online resources galore. There's clubs reaching out to get online resources for all their coaches. I'm giving them great deals. I'm a pseudo coach consultant, coach director who helps the coach and the coach director at so many different clubs. And like I said earlier, if you want me to mentor you as a coach individually, I will discount you hugely if you can get me in with your club. So just reach out. Admin at rugbyleaguecoach.com.au or at Rugby League Coach, Instagram and Facebook for messages. But you'll find me on YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, and at RL Coach on the net. If you're on YouTube now, you're leaving us. Thank you so much for watching. And I'm going to tell the listeners about coaching tips this week.